I'm Sharon Vollman, Editorial Director of OSP. Welcome to OSP TV. I'm here with Tom Maguire and Chris Levendos, our keynote speakers from Verizon. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
I have a few questions for you. Obviously, we talked last spring, and we were talking about your network transformation projects. A lot has clearly happened since then. So my question is, how's it going? What's the most challenging? And why is it so important to you and Verizon?
I guess I'll start. We kind of split the program up into a couple of different piece parts. The part that I focused on dealt primarily with consumer and mass business customers, and it was focused on going after people who have had a very poor service experience. And primary focus is get those customers onto a better platform, and so they don't have to call us and we don't have to roll a truck out there. So there's operational benefits as well. I think last we spoke, we probably had roughly 500,000 or so customers migrated. That number topped 700,000 at this point. We took an interesting step towards the middle of the year, and we started to really focus on making sure that we only moved people who were having chronic issues. And the reason for that is we wanted to ensure that we weren't going to spend capital on migrating somebody when it really wasn't even necessary to do so. The goal of this is not necessarily to strip copper out of the ground, but just make sure the customer gets great service and has that great service on a going forward basis. So when we started focusing on what I'll refer to those as high return migrations, we lowered the number of people that we're removing, but interestingly enough, we increased the payback, if you will, associated with the folks that we did in fact move. So that's really the approach we're going to take from this point going forward. And I think it makes a lot of sense because it allows us to take the capital that we would have spent migrating some of these other folks and move it over to Chris's efforts. And Chris is looking at something that's a little bit broader in nature.
So with network transformation in 2014, we've looked to pick up from where Tom's efforts have been over the last couple of years in moving consumer customers from copper to fiber. We've been leveraging from that model and now focusing in very specific geographic areas in moving all customers, consumer customers, small business customers, and large customers, and going through a complete migration effort from copper to fiber where when we're finished, that serving area, that traditional serving area from a Verizon perspective will be completely fiber optic based from a wireline infrastructure. And this continues the focus on improving service for our customers, that it becomes the finest quality level of service that we can provide, but it also gets all of our customers on platforms that we can continue to evolve in the future as services continue to grow and expand.
And what's the most challenging thing since we talked, that ramp up even more than early on has got to be a little more challenging, or is it not? Was it easier?
In the stuff that I've been focused on is we've hit a good stride now. The program has been institutionalized. It's a matter of routine, which is where I wanted to get it. It was interesting that for a number of years I did nothing but talk about migrations at work, and I would go to senior manager meetings and leadership council meetings, and people would always say, "What are we doing? What are we doing?" And, probably towards the second quarter of this year, maybe a little bit earlier, people stopped asking me because it just became just part of what we do. And so I think that's pretty telling in and of itself. So from my perspective, things have gotten a little easier.
Oh, that's nice.
Building high quality networks, whether they're wireline or wireless, is what we do. So that's the easy part. And all of our employees love participating in the modernization of the infrastructure. The challenge has really been to drive clear awareness as to what we're doing, what the focus is, what the goal. But I agree with Tom that that is getting easier with each passing day as we just continue to tell our story, and people realize the positive focus, the real positive outcome that comes from our customer perspective in having quality of services, competitive services, evolving services into the future. And for us as a business, we become more efficient, we become simpler to deal with as we move forward, and it becomes just a better experience altogether.
Great answers. Thank you so much. Tom, in the spring, we were talking a little bit about your DRC transformation, Dispatch Resource Center transformation,
Yep.
correct?
Yep.
What's the biggest thing that surprised you? Where are you on it at this point?
We've made some good progress. We're not moving as fast as I would like us to move. A lot of the stuff that we've been working on, it's kind of interesting. Traditionally speaking, the dispatch centers were specific to a unique region. So each region had their own center or their group of centers, and they dispatched technicians however they saw fit. And over the last couple of years, we've modernized our systems, and right now we're in the process of making sure that everybody is using those systems in the same efficient manner. So we're identifying best practices and making sure that people understand why we're doing what we're doing. One of the interesting things here, I kind of come from the world where you do something because somebody tells you to do something, and that's not the world we live in anymore. So we've actually worked with our change management organization to help overcome some of the fears and trepidation that people have about changing the way that they do things. And so that's been a little bit of an eye-opening experience to me because, normally I'm kind of used to say, hey, do this, and folks go off and do it. But now, it's just different to realize that, and that necessarily wasn't the best approach all along, because now I get to hear input from people who maybe are a little bit smarter than me or smarter than the other folks who are involved. And so now we're able to have a discussion. It's kind of interesting. It's like I spoke a little bit earlier about some of the networking opportunities we have here at OSP. It's kind of the same approach, where you get to hear from different experts, people that really know what they're talking about, and taking that information and packaging it in such a way where it can make life a lot busier or a lot better for people. And that was my real eye-opening experience, that there are others out there that really kind of know things maybe a little bit better, and it's important to listen to those folks.
Very good learning across the field.
Yep.
Right? Chris, glasses problem. Tell me how Verizon is working collaboratively between enterprise, small business, and consumer teams to extend the wireless network inside urban areas into the core of buildings to deploy small cells and DAS systems. And what are the challenges related to that?
So the challenges comes from demand on the network, capacity of the network, mostly in dense urban areas where people are wanting the high quality, but also high throughput speeds and using multiple devices. So there's been certainly tremendous investment and movement forward in upgrading the network in those areas. But the challenges in the cities, both in commercial buildings and residential buildings, is the challenge of getting wireless signals inside to buildings. And interestingly enough, as more modern buildings are being constructed today and looking to gain LEED certifications, they're actually being built with infrastructure elements, different types of glasses that actually restrict frequencies from getting in the building. So while it's all very positive in the managing of the heating and cooling of the building, it actually makes the technology, wireless technology, even more difficult. So there has to be a planning and a collaboration with wireless carriers, real estate, the real estate industry, to be able to bring the wireless network inside the buildings. On the wireline side, we keep wanting to advance fiber optics. And so there's the collaboration for wanting to accomplish these both things, the necessity to continue to extend fiber, the necessity to extend wireless networks, small cell systems, DAS systems inside the buildings, and working together, to leverage both of those networks, the fiber-based network in support of high-speed data capacity, as well as wireless capacity as well.
And it really does come down to that people element, which is the human network, which is the crux of everything you do. If you don't have people who can collaborate or project manage appropriately, you can't get done what you need to get done.
Yep.
Really good points. Now, of course, I have to ask the question. We've talked about the importance for all of us to stay relevant. In fact, that was one of your themes in the interview that we had. How does OSP EXPO help attendees do that?
Well, for me, as we commented earlier today when we were talking, I look back at the last 10 years and what it just tells me of all the transformation and innovative changes that we've gone through is that the possibilities are still out there. They're still forward. Our chairman is constantly always telling us, that there's always a higher gear. There's always room for improvement, and we believe that very, very strongly. And with the vendor community, we've done remarkable things over the last decade, and we need to continue to drive each other to do more remarkable things and keep gaining more efficiencies and simplifying how we do these things into the next decades. So, and this is a great platform for doing that.
So to look at it from a simpler perspective, just the walk over here from the presentation room, I think is pretty remarkable because, I know as I look to see what some other vendors out there, we have a tendency sometimes to think, okay, what I have is the best there is. But then you start to see some of the other developments that people have, out there in the marketplace, and I think it spurs creativity. And so that's, just from my perspective, walking around looking to see what the vendors have. The other thing I think that I have no doubt happens, the vendors look to see what everybody else is doing. And so now they can see, okay, how does this guy do this? How does this guy do that? And that will create spur additional creativity on their part. So I think getting all these very smart people together where they can see what's happening, it all gets that education process, and I think it accelerates some of the change that Chris mentioned and that I've been talking about that's necessary for us to stay relevant on a going forward basis.
Very good point. And speaking of staying relevant, we're heading around the corner to 2015, and as you know, each year we do a predictions piece in the print publication. Well, I'm hoping to gain your 2015 predictions here at OSP TV. So may I ask what your thought is? What's going to happen?
Well, the most important thing I'm worried about 2015 is, who's going to play shortstop for the New York Yankees?
That's kind of...
So that's top of mind. But after that, we just, what we're working on is certainly the right things to be working on. And we need to drive them forward. We need to do it faster. We need to do it more efficiently. We need to keep pushing for the higher gear, and we need the collective industry to be supporting that. And we've relied on that in the past, and we're going to continue to rely on it in the future.
I think that we're going to see more customer involvement in some of the processes that we have. Something that we started doing a couple of years ago was this whole self-install process. And so now it's interesting, when we sit down and we start talking about new product development, we start thinking about, okay, if we were going to roll out this product, how can we design this product such that if a customer needs a technician, we send a technician. But if a customer wants to do it on their own terms, at their whatever pace they have, they can do it themselves. So I think you're going to see more of a customer focus, not only in terms of providing them better service, but how do we enable that customer to make sure that they themselves have a hand in providing that service. So I think we're going to see a little bit more of that in the future as well.
Very good insight. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this with me.
Thank you.
On behalf of OSP Magazine, I'm Sharon Vollman. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great show.